Hey everybody, Eric Cole here with Switch Adapted Toys. Today we're going to be adapting the Fisher-Price Laugh and Learn vacuum. I have not done this toy yet. This is going to be a kind of a live adapting. We'll figure out how to do it together. Maybe teach you a little bit about our thought process in terms of how we tackle new toys. So if you like this content, please like and subscribe. It really does help us out making play possible to everybody. But yeah, let's get into it. First things first, this is a used toy. A good resource is to check out like secondhand stores. We got this toy for $4.50. Everything totally works. I've already checked it out. If you're ever using a used toy, you want to make sure that it operates normally. The worst case scenario is that you spend a bunch of time adapting a toy and then you realize it never worked in the first place. So we'll turn it on. This is the button we're going to try to figure out how to do. It's really kind of the only button on the toy, but when you press it, it plays a song, it lights up, it kind of gets the best bang for the buck in terms of adapting. Let's get into it. Let's figure out how to get this bad boy open. Looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 screws along the back compartment that we need to get off. They're just standard Phillips head. So once I got all the screws off the back, I realized that there was another screw. You could have to tip the head of the vacuum up in order to get it off. And let's see if we can get it open up. Looks like the handles come off. Okay, it's always a challenge to get toys open sometimes. It looks like we also need to remove the screws on the vacuum head itself. There's a lot of screws on this toy. You could always use a power drill. I just find that I'm less likely to break something if I'm doing it by hand. Alright, so now that we got all the screws off, let's see if we can get this off now. The problem is these wheels. So, a couple more hidden screws that I just found. So if you pull the wheel back, you'll see that there's another little cutout here. We need to get a screwdriver in there to get that screw out. And it's not going to be easy. You're just going to have to kind of pry things a little bit. Hopefully nothing breaks. I'm really struggling to get this open, but I'm getting it. There we go. Now that we've got everything separated, we can remove the back panel. Alright, so we've got our battery going to this board. This harness is going to the speaker. I'm just going to remove these harnesses. Alright. A couple buttons we can take out. And there's a couple screws holding down this circuit board that we need to remove. These screws are a little smaller than the rest of the screws in the toy, so just make sure you set them aside. Alright, so here's the circuit board. The button that we're adapting right here, what it does is it depresses this little gasket and it presses up against this little disc right here. You could, in theory, solder to each part half of this disc right here, but it's not easy to do. What is a lot easier to solder to are these actual soldering points here. So what I try to do is try to follow these lines and just try to figure out where they go to, what they go to, and maybe we can figure it out. I oftentimes will use a pair of tweezers. Problem is, right now we don't have power or speaker hooked up, so I gotta reattach everything. Make sure it's on. So when I touch both sides of that disc, it sets off the toy. So after messing around with this for way too long, I've kind of changed my plan a little bit. Initially, we were going to try to adapt the song button on the front here, which would basically connect here on the circuit board. These are just really hard to solder to. You can do it, but they're just difficult to do. So this little thing on the back of the board is an accelerometer. So whenever I shake the circuit board, it plays a song. So we're going to solder our 3.5 millimeter headphone jack wires to these two wires. So that's what actually I'm going to do is I'm going to connect to these 2 points right here, and then and that'll work totally fine. So I'll show you how to do that. First, we need to prep our 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. Here's a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack wire. It's basically we need to prep this, get it inside the toy, and so we can solder it. So first thing we need to do is strip the casing off the wire. We're going to take the black casing off of the headphone jack. Yours might look a little different than mine. My headphone jack wires, I've got 3 sets of wires. I've got a bunch of loose unprotected copper wires. I've got a red wire and I got a white wire. So first thing I'm going to do is just separate these wires out. So I've separated all the copper wires, kind of get them all in one place. And I'm just going to hold on to the end and kind of twist the whole thing, and that will wind up all these wires together. Okay, so you can see now clearly I've got a white wire, a red wire, and a copper wire. I need to combine the red wire and the copper wire together. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to use my finger. You can also use some wire strippers. I'm just going to remove the casing off the red wire, and I'm going to twist the red wire and the copper wire together the same way. Just kind of grab the end and rotate it. You want to make sure you get all of the wires. There's no stray wires left floating around in there. Twist it real good. And then I'm going to remove just the tip of the white wire. Okay, just like that. So I've got a red and copper wire and a white wire. Now, there's a lot of exposed wire here, so we need to use a heat shrink wire cover. Slip it over just to protect all of this exposed wire. So I'm going to get that and I'll show you how to do it. So I've got my heat shrink wire cover. I'm just going to cut it to the right length. Just kind of mark it. You can measure it if you really wanted to. Not really necessary. And then I'm going to slip the wire cover onto the wire. Now, if you don't have any heat shrink wire covers, you could use electrical tape. It'd be totally fine. This is just a more, it's a better way to do it, but if you don't have any, don't worry about it. Use electrical tape. So there, I'm going to slip it all the way down so everything's protected. And I'm going to use a heat gun to shrink that wire cover down. Now we need to figure out how to get this bad boy into the toy. We got to drill a hole to get this guy in there, to fish it through. So you got to kind of figure out where's a good place to drill. You don't want to drill into the circuit board, obviously, or drill into something that, you know, is necessary. So in the back here of the blue part, there is just a bunch of open space. So I'm going to just drill directly into that. So grab a drill with the correct bit size, the same thickness as your 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, and I'm just going to drill a hole right through the toy. Now I'll fish my headphone jack wire through this hole. Alright, and we need to secure this wire somehow. That way if someone were to yank on the cord, it doesn't just pull the whole thing out. So what we'll do is we'll use a zip tie to secure it. So I got my zip tie. I'm just going to, I find that the smaller the zip tie, the better, because you're able to kind of get a tighter grasp on the wire. I'm just going to slip this over the wire, push it all the way down towards the casing of the toy, and tighten it up as tight as I can. So as soon as you got it nice and tight, give it a good pull. See, it's kind of slipping a little bit. I'd rather it not do that. So I'm gonna try to cinch it down a little bit more. All right, and give it a tug. That's pretty good. And I'm just gonna snip off the extra zip tie. So I got my soldering iron. Careful, the tip of this is extremely hot. Do not touch it. Soldering is super easy. I am no means trained. This is just, it's not hard, okay? Don't worry about it. Just be careful of the tip, don't touch it, don't put it on anything that you're not supposed to put it on. Once my soldering iron heats up here, what I'm gonna do first, what I like to do is kind of get a little bit of solder on the wires first. I just bring my soldering iron in, it melts the solder, and I'm just basically start from like the back and work my way out to the tip, getting some solder on that wire. This just makes it a little bit easier to connect things together when I go to connect everything up. Now I've got some solder on these. I need to solder it to the board. Again, we're gonna solder to these 2 points right here. I'll make sure my toy is off. If you've got little, they're called alligator clips, it kind of holds everything together. It's super helpful. If you have a partner that you trust, you're not gonna burn their fingers, you can do that. So I'm just gonna hold this here, and it's not gonna take much. I just need to melt the solder enough that I can reset this wire. This is kind of why I put solder on there to begin with, because now I can melt the solder that's on the wire already and create that connection. And it doesn't take much. Okay, that guy's on there. You can give it a little tug just to make sure. And let's do the other one. Again, I am no expert at soldering. I'm sure someone in the comments will say something about it, but it doesn't have to be perfect. As long as it works, that's good enough. Alright, so once you got both of those together, we can go ahead and test it. So let's make sure we've got our power and our speaker hooked up. I'm gonna get a switch and we'll give it a shot. Alright, I've got my switch. I'm gonna go ahead and plug it in. Moment of truth.
Let's clean up colors.
Excellent, that's exactly what we wanted. So before you put the back plate on, we realized that there was one extra step we needed to do. In order for everything to work properly, we needed to deactivate the accelerometer. So inside this little square here, there's a little marble, and we need to pop the lid off of there and get the little marble out. That way the accelerometer won't work, and the button will work properly. So all we're gonna do is use some pliers. I've actually already done this, but you're just gonna pry open the top. You don't even need to put it back on, and there'll be a little ball inside there. Just take the ball out, and then you're good to go. Put everything back together. So fit the back case on, and we'll go ahead and screw in all of the screws on just this section of the toy. Don't forget to put your handle back in before you screw it down. Alright, now for the little bit of a tricky part, we need to get the vacuum head on. And we have those hidden screws we have to deal with. So we're going to just get everything kind of in place here. I have to bend these wheels to get them back into place. Generally I say don't try to yank too hard on things, but in this case a little bit of force is necessary. Alright, so now everything is seated. We can go ahead and get our screws in there. Alright, so now we have to get the screws in that kind of are hidden behind the wheels. So if you have a magnetized screwdriver, it's going to help this process out a lot. We're just going to kind of bend the wheel back, fit that screw in there. And screw it home. Alright, And that's it. We'll get our switch out, make sure it works, and if so, we're done. So let's give our toy a test.
Let's clean up colors.
Excellent. So when the toy is in the off position, it'll play that song, or play a couple different songs. When the toy is on the on position, on the actual vacuum, not on the actual power, but on the vacuum, it'll play like a vacuum sound. So a couple different options there, which is great. So hopefully you got through it. Pretty easy build. Shouldn't be too hard. You can definitely do it. If you want to find out more about Switch adapted toys, you can visit us on our website at www.switchtoys.org. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. It helps us out in a big way in supporting our mission of making play possible. Hopefully you like this video, and we'll see you next time.
Switch adapted toys, making play possible.